Okay, everybody. Well, welcome to this special Moxi Present class. Like Bob normally says, this isn't an official Century 21 sanctioned class and everything. This is just a Century 21 Jordan Link class that we do and we share with the franchise since we all use the same tools and can benefit from our knowledge base. I'm Mitz Matsunami. I'm the tech over at the Century 21 in Fresno, and I've been a real estate agent for about 34 years. I just did regular residential real estate for a while. I got involved with the foreclosure market probably in like 98. And that was like a one or two extra listings a year kind of thing until 2007 when it just went crazy. So that was another kind of different market. I also do ag. I have a degree in ag business. So if you guys have any questions about ag or anything like that, you can rely on me to give you some accurate information from experience. Really quick, this Moxie Present is going to be, I mean, this Moxie presentation is going to be about Moxie Present and how to use the presentation and maybe some strategy while you're doing the gaining and creating the presentation. So really quick, I'm going to take you the long way around through 21 Online to get into MoxieWorks. So I'm going to go ahead and sign in. I think I'm already logged in, so it's going to take me to the page, but that's where you would put your credentials, which is your first name dot your last name at century21.com. It's not a usable email address, but it's merely the way that you would log in. So there's a two-factor authentication that goes along with it. It'll just text you, you'll put in the authorization code, and you'll get into where I'm at located right now. So what this is right here is called the hamburger menu. You would normally click here and then scroll down to the productivity hub, which is where all the tools for Century 21 are located. They're all organized in alphabetical order. So if you're looking for MoxiWorks, it's right around the middle. And if you click on any one of these things, it'll take you to the Moxi start page. But we're technically working on Moxi Present, so we're going to go there. And this is the start page. All the different tools will eventually show up on top depending on how fast your internet speed is. And today we're going to do a present. And for the sake of this particular presentation, what I'm going to do is a very quick creation of the presentation. Bob is the one that made the actual brokerage presentation. I'm going to show you how to get there and how to use it. My presentation is long. I think my presentation is probably about 30 or so pages. But then I like to talk about certain ways that the marketing's done. And everybody, if you guys see anybody waiting in the waiting room, just let me know and I'll admit them. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a presentation based on Bob's presentation. So what we're going to do is we're going to create new and we're going to do a seller's presentation. And I'm actually going to do it on a listing that I have listed right now and talk to you about some of the finer nuances about using Moxi Present. So this is where you would go to create a template. My templates are right here. You can see all the different ones I have, but the one that Bob created for everybody else is with the brokerage templates, okay? And the one that Bob wants you to use today is this luxury design agent update template. And it's dated, so you know how accurate and how recent it's been. So we're gonna go ahead and click that, and we're gonna hit continue. When you hit the continue button, you can add your presentation name. It would probably be the name of the client. And if the client's already in your Moxi Engage, I think it'll fill in right there. But I'm just going to do it for Bob Patel. Oh, I shouldn't have done that all in capitals. I'm yelling at Bob. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and create that presentation. You'll see the little spinning thing. Depending on your internet speed, it will. Okay, just need it one more. It will take a few seconds, okay? But just be patient. You'll get to this screen eventually. So what you normally would do from here on out is you would either pull up the contact from Moxi Engage, and then all this information will filter down, or you can start typing in the address if it's a client that you're just starting to work with and everything. What I'm going to do to cut to the chase is I'm actually going to use the MLS number, which is allowed, so that all the information will filter in for you. So let's say if you're like in this particular case, this person bought this property in 2000 and where's the date on this thing? Well, they bought it a few years back. I could have used this MLS number to create the presentation, which will filter in all the information here. I'm going to use this one since I don't have the authorization for that one. So let's do it that way. So I'm going to put in the MLS number right here and hit copy, and all the information should be uploaded. And there's a reason why this photo is actually my first photo in the slide deck, and I'll explain that later on when we get into the presentation itself. So, and if I wanted to add a contact to this presentation, I could put Bob in there, and I think Bob would pop up, Bob Patel. I don't want to send Bob a presentation, so I'm going to delete it off of there, but that would be it. The address is already propagated. Where it is in the map is already in there. All this information that you normally would be typing in from the tax records already shown in place. And the last thing I wanted to show you guys is the remarks area. So let's say I've met this client for the first time. And usually you make your first introductions on the phone or by text. But in the remarks section right here, it's actually the written remarks from the MLS. If you're going on your first appointment with this particular client, I usually leave this area for the conversation that I had with the client. So I'll be taking down notes about, what they say about the property. Oh, I've got an additional room. I've replaced the roof. I've, painstakingly done this. I've got a divorce situation. All the notes and everything about your conversation I put into the remarks section so that the client knows that I paid attention to their every detail on the phone. So that's what I use that location for. And then you hit continue at the bottom. And this is where you would go to pick out the comps for this particular property. This particular property is extraordinarily fixed up, and it's a particular build. So you can't just pick from what is, around it through the radius search. So what I wanted to show you guys is if you knew, maybe some of you guys that are from Visalia, I don't know my way around Visalia very well, but Fresno, Madera, Kerman, those areas, I'm pretty versed. So I'm going to show you how I would take this property particularly. Now, I'm going to use the multi-draw tool, which will allow me to draw everything in a very straight line. The quick draw is mostly like to lasso things and everything. So the multi one, you can actually pick out, pretty precisely where everything's at. So I am going to draw from Shaw. Oops, wrong place. I'm sorry. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to clear. Okay. Let me move this down a little bit. I'm sorry. I'm going to undraw. Exit. We need to move over just a hair. Okay, there we go. And then Fresno State. Okay. So, like I said, I'm going to use a multi-draw tool. We're going to go from Barstow all the way to Fresno State, which is all the same build. And then from Sierra to Chestnut to Herndon, all the way back down to Barstow. Okay? And that's going to show the comps that are in there. I'm sorry, there's a few more people I need to admit. Okay, there we go. And that will show you from where the location is, the available comparable properties. Now, this property is very fixed up, and they've described it to me as being very fixed up. So I'm going to pick some ranges that are probably from the high end to maybe the mid-range because it's probably not going to be compared to the lesser properties. And this is an older neighborhood, so we kind of know that ahead of time. So I'm going to pick the comps that are, the closest and see which one are the highest. Like that 420 is a sold. And unfortunately, there's no photos of it, so that's too bad. Okay, but you're going to hover over this one. It's going to pull it up, and we're going to choose that comp. Actually, I'm going to cut to the chase really quick because I know which ones they are. So this one right here. Oops, where'd that go? 479. And I'm just going to pick one right in the middle, the Stewart property, because I remember that was one that was pretty fixed up. I think this is the one that's a model match because my property is 1590 square feet. Okay. And then we want to take three actives on the higher end if we can. So five, and I know there was one that was more than, I don't know why that one's not coming up. Okay, just for the sake of getting this presentation done, I'm just going to pick those. Okay, so we've picked three actives and three solds, which is exactly how the appraisers do it. Okay. Oh, I know what it was. I'm sorry, guys, I'm gonna have to step back one. There was something I did want to bring up, and it's the filtering. The way that MoxiPresent does it is they'll add 200 square feet up and down from the subject property square footage. And what you really, really want to do is use a 20% variance. So what I do, and I'll put this in the chat, there's there's a website you can go to, and it's just a simple percentage calculator. So our property is 15, I think it's 1594 square feet. Okay. So in the 1594, in the Moxi present, we want to put in, I mean, in the add subtract, it's going to show us what the high and low value is that we can use. So the largest home we can compare it to is 1912 square feet. Moxi presents giving us an upper end of 1800 square feet. So that actually shows you exactly what the appraisers are going to be looking at. And then on the minus side, this is easy to do math, it's 1275. So instead of just allowing the 1400, we'll be allowing to have more properties that we can compare it to. The other thing you might want to do is take off some of these other things like canceled, failed sales, stuff like that off market, because we really just want the pending and solds. And then hit apply. And I remember that opened up a lot more properties for us because there's larger properties that are still allowable in the 20% variance, and there's smaller properties that are allowed in the 20% variance. So I am not going to pick new comps because I think I'm taking too much time on this portion of it, but you hit continue at the bottom, and then we'll start organizing those comps for you. And there's a lesson to be learned on this in this particular property because it did not appraise out. And I'll tell you the story behind it and everything. So the next thing you want to do is you want to organize how these are lined up. Right now, they're just really kind of lined up by price, I believe. So the way you want to do it so that it lines up like an appraisal is order by, active to sold, because that's how they do it in an appraisal. And then you want to add one more filter, which is price low to high, just like an appraisal. So your actives and pendings are right here, and then your solds follow it. And in increasing order. Alrighty. And then that's all the comps right there. So that has been aligned for you. And we're going to go to the next field, which would be to just kind of give it a price. So the estimated market value is around 460, okay? But since this is our first, our first visit to the property, I'm going to give it a range of about, the low was about 415 to, I believe, 465. That way we're giving the seller a high and a low. You would hit apply. And then in the remarks area right here, you would probably type in, I'm not a very fast typer, but you would normally type in, this is the range of property values in the neighborhood comparable in general to the condition of your property that you described. This price may slide up or down depending on the condition of your property, the level of improvements, and whatnot. So I would write something like that in the remarks area at that point, and then hit continue. Okay, now we're going to move to the actual pages that Bob had created for everybody. If you imported a photograph of the property, it would show up as the background, which is really cool. The reason why I used the interior photo as my first photo on this listing is the outside of the house is in actual immaculate condition, but it's really hard to tell from the outside of the property the level of, remodeling that's been done. So if you're looking in the neighborhood and you're kind of looking for something, you might just, gloss over it because the exterior of the property doesn't look that, impressive. So I put the inside photo as the first photo so they would grab attention. And I owe Bob a little bit of pump on this because there's a tool with Century 21 called the Golden Ruler, and it actually tracks how many clicks you're getting and everything. I put this property up on a Wednesday, and I'm thinking a lot of agents and people are going to call me on it, and I didn't get any. I mean, like none. So the next day I said, there's got to be something wrong with this thing. So I checked all the websites and whatnot. Nothing really going on. So I thought maybe they can't tell from the outside of the property. So I put the first page on there and then I started getting some calls and then I started getting some showings and people were asking about the property. So in certain cases, that might be the thing that might work for you. In this one, it's a particularly fixed up property, so that's one of the things. So anyway, this is where Bob wanted me to kind of talk about the presentation itself. The Moxi Present or any present that Century 21 does, they used to have one called the Toolkit CMA. And what it's designed to do is it's designed to create conversations between you and the seller. Me personally, I adhere to the way that Bob Wolf does his presentations in LA. He's like one of the real estate agents to movie stars and sports stars and stuff like that. But he's a two appointment agent. So his first presentation is basically to talk a little bit about, his franchise, his past, things like that, and vaguely give you some information about the property. He'll come to the property, investigate it, get to know the sellers really well, get to know what their, interest was in the property, and then come a second time and present a more accurate presentation with just the comps. So the initial one is going to have more information about the franchise, your marketing, and things like that, just to open up conversation so you can talk about the property. I mean, yourself and the property. So Bob has it set up so the franchise is the first page. And what I'm going to do for you guys? I'm actually going to show you what it really looks like. So this is what the presentation should look like. And I am going to try to see if I can get this in full page mode. There we go. So if you're presenting on, or if they're looking at it on their computer or whatnot, this is what they're going to see. In most cases, they're going to see this before you get there. And then I'll tell you about the second portion of what I do when I'm at a presentation. So it's the hardbound copy that I bring with me. And there's a little bit of a difference between what um, the hardbound copy and the online copy. And I'll explain that when we get there. Rather than go through each page individually, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you what the presentation would be like. This is where you're usually going to introduce yourself, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. Do you recognize the property? This is the property address, and this is the presentation that I made for you. And I'd like to talk to you about the power of the Century 21 brand. We've actually got a 98% satisfaction rating. We're one of the most recognized brands, and we're one of the most respected brands in the industry. You could really just read it right off the card if you like. And you can always add your own spin. The Century 21 system has been around for 50 years now. And actually, Century 21, Jordan, Lincoln, Fresno is actually exceeds the age of the franchise. We've been around for 62 years, and we are actually the the oldest residential real estate office in Fresno. So if you have any other details that you want to add, you can always add it to there, and that's usually what I'll do. So, oops, those are my notes. Okay. This is a new slide that's been changed from one of the other, Century 21 slides. It talks about the website. And they were talking that generally, you can read this all and, kind of derive what's going on with it. You know, all, buyer or seller leads start on the internet. And this is basically what it alludes to. And they'll read through all the information and know that the Century 21 website has one of the largest hits for a residential real estate website. I thought it doesn't say that we're number one, but it used to say that we were the number one seen franchised website and everything. And then how it's filtered into the Century Twin social media. So if you guys want to talk about how that starts, there's actually a slide that I like better than this one, and it's not in the horizontal format yet, but I'll tell you about it maybe in the next Moxie present that we do. So, and then this is where the golden ruler comes in, and you don't have to necessarily name it as the golden ruler, but you know, if you like, you can read verbatim from the page. They've probably already read it because you've already sent it to them, but communication is very important. And we want you to know, how your marketing is going. So the golden ruler will let you know how many property views you're getting, how many inquiries we got, and how many people have saved your property to their favorites. You'll be provided with all the statistical information in the what's the word, in the frequency that you request. And there's also a map showing where all your inquiries are coming from. The property that I had listed, a lot of the inquiries came from Sacramento, which is really kind of weird. But I think there's a lot of people that are selling their Sacramento homes to people from the Bay Area, and they're moving down to where we're at, where it's a little bit more affordable. So, and of course, those people from the Bay Area are also coming down here, driving up our prices. I usually use um, this field, which is the property summary first, because it kind of familiarizes the seller with what their property actually is. But you basically are going to talk about, yeah, it's a three bedroom, two bath. Is the square footage correct? Is that lot sound sign correct? And then under the remarks, that's where the client will see, oh yeah, you told me this about the property, and this is the situation that you're in. Just wanted to reiterate that with you so that we can, revisit the topics that you talked to me about. Since then, I've been able to, get some information for you about doing a 1031 exchange. You had questions about taxes and whatnot, so I did a little research on that as well. So those are where those conversations start and everything. And all the rest of the statistical information is on there. You can talk about any discrepancies they have. My personal property is actually the wrong square footage, and it seems to be getting bigger every year. So that's another thing that you can discuss with the agent or, bring up stories about that type of thing. And then now we get to the most important part. If I can get this thing to scoot over. There we go. Is the listing location map and how you need to describe this to the clients. Uh, and which is the best thing about MoxiPresent is the delivery system that we offer. When you go up against other realtors, they usually show up with a paper comps, printed, CMAs from the MLS or whatnot, but they're not able to see the photography and compare your property one-on-one. So this is probably the strongest tool that we can offer. There's a property, and I think it's the one that was closest. It was in the previous one, but you can compare, that property by photography and really impress them on the fact that, your property has the same type of decor, the same level of improvement. Actually, our property is better than this one. So, but then, you guys can discuss that. And if there's any questions they have, because they've probably seen this before you showed up uh, to the showing, you can discuss what you think. Like all these things can be done, and it's probably the strongest thing that you can do to show your value is to actually literally talk to them about, well, this property is fixed up pretty well. You have granite, they have, tile. So maybe you should be a little bit above them, but they've got a pool, we don't, have those conversations and then start putting the puzzle together. This is my favorite view right here, the listing location map. And I would just, this is probably where the bulk of your conversation is going to happen with your clients. So you can kind of, walk through those things. Now, the listing overview are just tiles of the individual properties. It's not really necessary because you have that view above. But what it is necessary for is if you have the tile view, when you do the printed presentation, it actually will allow you to have the tile view on one side and then all the photographs on the other side. And I'll show you how to set that up because if you choose 12 photographs, it will fill up one page. And when you print the presentation, if you do it right, you'll have the comp on one side and photos on the other. So they'll actually won't lose out on the ability to see some of the photography, at least 12 photos. So that's another thing that you want to keep this in there. And that's probably the reason why Bob kept it in there. There is a status comparison, which also can be augmented to carry different statistics in there and everything. But some numbers people would like to see these stats and everything side by side. So that is one of the things that I do keep in my presentation. The online presentation. This one's just, talking about the averages so that you'll see the high and the low, which is kind of like what we already had talked about. And they also have the different ways to view them. So if you wanted to just see what your competition was going to be, this is the price range that they're at. Oops, excuse me, the opposite of that. There we go. So that would be your competition and the price ranges that they're at. Okay. And is there anybody else that we're missing here? Okay, everybody's good. And then of course, you have your finishing page, which will have, your contact information, your bio. I actually have my resume uploaded as a PDF so that that comes after, I think it comes before my actual page and everything. This information, just make sure that it's correct. Your bio information, you need to send to your admin or Bob or I, and we'll make sure that that's updated as well. Bob has also added some additional pages, and this is, I think, where Bob wanted to talk about like the marketing. They talk about having the individual websites created through Century 21 automatically, and he wanted to show the level of I guess, marketing that's done through Century 21. So all these pages are pulled up. They have photography, and so that you can show off kind of the level of photography that you have and everything, which we do. Juan Carlos does an excellent job. Example of the Matterport and the individual videos that Century 21 creates for the website. So this is pretty comprehensive, but it's really great to show that each property that you're going to have and everything is going to have this level of marketing. Then Bob literally goes to the marketing. So this is a foldable mailer or handout that you can hand out through Century 21, shows you the richness of it. And this is, if you're looking for that kind of marketing, Century 21 possesses that ability. And then at the very end, he has, I think it's a social media post and an example of that. So Bob's presentation has all that stuff built in, and you don't have to do anything but put in the information, choose your comps, it spits it out. And I mean, that was a very easy presentation. There's not a whole lot of dialogue that needs to be said. It keeps you organized and on target. My presentation's a little bit more. a little bit more, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a little more focused because I like to talk about the technology and everything. So, but this is a great presentation for someone that doesn't have anything ready to roll yet. And the other thing I wanted to show you is some of the variations. So, the listing map was what, the one that everybody likes the most. Actually, most sellers are pretty impressed by it. But the listing overview is necessary for you to have the print version. And let me make sure I have the print view. Okay, so this is what the one side of the page may look like. Well, actually, it's different. Okay, Bob, thanks. Okay, this is what I normally do, and let's see how it turns out. But this is how you decide how many photos will go along with it. And there we go. Oops, 12. We wanted 12. Okay. So when we get to the printed view, there will be alongside of this view 12 photographs of that particular property. And let's see if I'm aligned to you guys. And I like to bring the print view with me because it's not often that you're going to sit in front of a client in front of a computer and do this presentation. You're really going to send it to them. They're going to read through everything. And then when you meet, you can refer back to it. That's why I bring the print view. Remember what I talked about this slide? If you have any apprehension about, the marketing or the website or whatnot, you can refer back to it in the print version of it, and then you guys can revisit that information. If they're talking about a particular property, you can pull it up in the page view, and then there's also going to be another additional 12 photographs that you can choose from. So let me scroll down because those pages aren't going to change too much. But this one, I guess I am a liar. Oh no, there it is. Okay. So along with the photographs that come with that comparable, this is the photography that goes along with it. Oh, it's okay. Maybe in the luxury view, because it has a header on it, it doesn't allow you to just have the 12 photos next to it. So I'm gonna have to I'm gonna have to omit that from this particular presentation. Sorry, guys. Call me a liar. I was lying to you guys. That's not how it's done. So, but I think there's enough photographs with these six to show you a little bit of information about that property. So that's the difference between the luxury view and the regular view, guys. So let's see what time is it. Well, was that too fast? Let me take you guys off of mute. Charles, do you guys have anything you want to ask me or you want to comment on? I know you use it very well. Hold on, Charles. I'm going to ask to unmute. I thought I turned everybody's.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Charles.
Okay. Well, one thing I picked up is when you went through the filters on the laying out
The comps.
the comps. Yeah, I knew you could do one set. I didn't know there were at least more than one option on the criteria there because
Oh yeah.
I always showed them from low to high, but then I didn't know you could also at the same time do the section off the second option.
Well, yeah, it's kind of necessary because you really do want it to mimic kind of an appraisal. Oh, funny story. Oh man, you guys are gonna. Well, we got a little bit of time, so I'll burn some time online. This particular property, I came in low. It's probably the nicest property in the neighborhood. Um, it has got some incredible remodeled aspects of it and a lot of fine tuning. But the appraiser, it's an out of town lender. and the appraiser came from Tulare. And he has no idea about anything that's going on in Fresno. He admitted it. He goes, so I actually have this will be another presentation we can do another day, but I actually bring a lot of things for the appraiser, and I meet the appraiser whether I'm on the buyer side or the seller side. I'll bring my comps, I'll bring my description of the property. If I have bills that they've paid for, different improvements, I'll bring that with me. I'll bring a copy of the contract, including the counters. I'll bring the tax record, and I'll also bring, gosh, what's the last thing I would bring? I know there's one I'm missing, but all that stuff's necessary because the one reason why appraisals don't appraise is usually because they get a copy of the contract. But if there's been changes to the contract since, they put the contract together, whether it be, counters back and forth or, through repairs, they're the last ones to know. And then they appraise at a certain price, and then, you've increased it or decreased it or whatnot, and then it does, it'll fall through. So they need to have all the data. In this particular case, the property needed to be handpicked against other properties that had similar updates. Like there's about 7 or 8 properties in this neighborhood that have the walls removed and the rooms opened up with that level of improvement. So I handpicked those, and then I wrote a description that said, normally for a property of this in this neighborhood, going a quarter mile would be sufficient to find, good comps and whatnot. But this property has a level of improvement beyond what's normal in this location. I handpicked these properties. They all belong to the same builder and are within 20% GLA of the subject size. That way, the underwriters understand where you're coming from, and so does the appraiser. And then I use the magic word. The magic word in real estate is bracketed. This property is bracketed between the high and low for this neighborhood and this condition. And that's one of the words that you always want to use when you're describing the property. There's a property that sold for, I think it was 460, which is where my list price was going to be at. At 460, it's the same floor plan with the same types of improvements. I think theirs may have been a little bit more than mine, but you need to use the word model match. That's the other word that the appraisers are looking for to show justification for price. So those 2 words, if you can use that in your real estate lexicon, that will help you tremendously. So a lot of appraisers don't like to be led like that. So I put everything in a folder and I just hand it to them and I tell them about my background. I said, hey, when I used to do foreclosure and everything, the admins used to print all this stuff out for me, highlight some information, and then I just go to work and start jamming on getting this thing done. And that's probably what they do over there as well. But I've already pulled out the comps. I've already made the descriptions. I've already done all those things for him. They can go ahead and do all those things. So, but in this particular case, it came in 10,000 low because he took my comps and just I think he took the median sales price and multiplied it by the square footage, and that's how he derived his price. That appraisal was kicked back. It took him a week to get to us, and it usually would take about a day or two. So then the buyer's agent actually sent me the appraisal and we kind of laughed together. There was so many things that they had nitpicked on his appraisal for doing such a lackluster job. This guy was, the other thing was he just got licensed November of last year. So I was like, oh man, dude, you're ruining it for us. But I mean, it is what it is, and it's an FHA appraisal, so it will stick with the property. We're just going to go with it. The main concern the clients had on this one, because it was a relationship problem, they wanted to make sure that the property sold quickly so they wouldn't have to make any more payments. So we did get that accomplished for them. But I was hoping that we would put a little bit more money in their pocket because it's such an unusual build. So anyway, anybody have any questions about anything? Was that
I was
pretty?
just curious, Mitz, what cover sheet do you normally use?
I will use, let me see. I just use the regular old plain one. Let me see. This is the Portals one, Polyambeto. It's just the regular grayed out one. I use a photograph of a property that I listed in the past as my cover sheet. It's just
Okay.
the regular one. This is the normal everyday presentation. It just has another photo in it. And then this is the property summary sheet. You can upload a photograph. This actually came out of the MLS. This is what the property used to look like. Now the property is totally different. So, but that's something that I had, prior to going out to taking a look at their property. And then,
I sort of jump around because it shows good on the computer screen, but then when I print it out,
yeah,
the picture looks blown up and blurry, so it
yes,
doesn't look very good.
when it's a print quality, it needs to be a very high resolution. So this thing comes from the MLS, and it's not going to be a really great photo when it gets printed up. Yeah, so that is true. Print quality means density. So when Juan Carlos takes photos and it's in the like you get the two choices, the MLS view and the regular or the raw view, that's the one that you want to use for photography because it's very dense. So just takes longer to print though.
Yeah, it does.
Okay. Well, if nobody else got a question or a comment or would like to share some experiences, I guess we'll call it a day, guys.
All right. Thank you, Mitz.
Hey, thank you, and hopefully I didn't bore you guys. And well, we'll see you guys next Thursday.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.